Hi, I'm Robert Hensley, Emmy nominated makeup artist and award winning content creator. You're watching Face Value. This is the show where I get a chance to interview my friends, performers, makeup artists, to talk about beauty, their idea of beauty, our industry, and how our industry may have affected their relationship with beauty. Today's guest is an actor and Emmy Award winning creative. Kit Williamson is known for creating, writing, directing, and starring in the dark comedy series Eastsiders, on which I had the pleasure of working. Recently, Kit and I had a chance to work together again on his new independent series, Unconventional. Please join me in welcoming Kit Williamson. Kit, thank you so much for joining me on Face Value today. It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. It's great to see you.
I know, and in reality, it's only been a few months.
I know, but when you do a production with somebody and see them all day, every day, the loss is felt. I wish I could see you all day, every day, Robert.
It is. I know it does. I feel like I feel like I haven't seen my people in forever. So, Kit, first question. Pretty standard. What does beauty mean to you?
Hmm. I think it means a lot of different things, right? For me personally, I think I judge a person's beauty. It's going to be cliche, but on their insides, on their intentions, on how they walk through the world, and how they interact with people. You know, are they giving of their energy, or are they taking energy? And seeing somebody that is putting that light out into the world, that's beautiful to me. I think you also talk about it in terms of aesthetics, right? And I like to think I have an offbeat sense of aesthetics, and that I like some things and consider some things beautiful that other people would consider ugly. But at the end of the day, I think that, you know, the most beautiful thing is to interact with other people in the way that you would want to be interacted with.
I love that. I think the bigger question then is, how do you feel that, or do you feel that kind of this crazy industry that we're in, Hollywood, the entertainment, did you feel that that is kind of, that your idea of beauty is honored by the industry?
That's a tricky one. I think that we're seeing the idea of what is beautiful evolving on a daily basis. And we literally have TV shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, where people get to actually kind of debate what is beautiful, what is you know, good makeup, or what is attractive. You know, you can't get away from the sort of history of all of those things, and how it's wrapped up in basically every form of bullshit that we have available in this country, from patriarchal bullshit to racism, to you know, homophobia to a certain extent. You know, that's obviously tied into the patriarchal shit, but like, there was a time not long ago where it was pretty culturally acceptable to shit on other gay men for being feminine. And now I feel like that's being celebrated in a way that I didn't think possible when I was a little kid growing up in Mississippi. So I think that that's a cool marker of progress.
I agree. It's funny when we talk about how fast things change, and that beauty is always evolving. I was speaking to Cece Anderson, who is a makeup artist and a historian, and she had commented on my nail polish, and how that, right, right, gotta love the polish. That, in, Babylonian times, and places, before, kind of ancient Egypt, painting your nails was very commonplace for men and for women, and that really just kind of is more kind of contemporary history, where that became, a feminine feature, or something that, men shouldn't do. Um, but in that, on that kind of same line of things evolving and changing, you know, do you feel as both an actor and a content creator that trying to maintain or keep up with trends is difficult, as far as, trying to create something that is classic and timely? or timeless, I should say.
Yeah, I'm drawn to a lot of, just if we're taking it and extrapolating it out to like a broader sense of what is beautiful in the world and in aesthetics. Like I'm really drawn to mid-century modern aesthetics. I'm really drawn to those sort of classic timeless things, and then like sprinkle a little weird 2021 on top of it, and that's sort of my kryptonite. That's why I love Palm Springs so much. I'm so excited to film there. I find a lot of beauty in nature, which is why I'm so excited to film in Joshua Tree, and why I'm so excited to live in Joshua Tree, out in the middle of nowhere off a dirt road on 5 acres. Being able to go beautiful places and see beautiful architecture and furniture and works of art, like that's sort of candy for the eyes, right?
Right. It is. Um, I can say working with you is always a pleasure when we're talking about the look of a show or particular characters, and the fact that um, you do always have a very strong sense of what that visual should be, or the, not necessarily, I don't want to say the trend, because I feel like we've been really I don't want to say lucky, but we've avoided following too many trends and really just kind of gone for things that are really that will stand the test of time. Uh, so, just in talking about trends and how things change, and especially how Hollywood kind of perpetuates or propels trends, um, how has that affected kind of your relationship with beauty personally?
Mm. Well, just from a production standpoint, as a director, I'm less concerned with trends and more concerned with like the interplay of color and shapes, right? Like where the lines drawing your eye. Are you supposed to be looking at the center of the frame? Are you supposed to be looking to the side? That should affect everything from production design to costume to hair and makeup. And that's something that I've not really had an opportunity prior to this shoot to interface with multiple department heads. Dirty little secret of Eastsiders is that we never, like, we only had like production design on certain days. We didn't really have a dedicated wardrobe team for costumes, except for, again, certain days. So largely it was just sort of me and the actors sort of coming to a lot of those decisions. We obviously had brilliant hair and makeup, but in a show that is, primarily dudes, there's less opportunity to play. Except, of course, when you get into a character like Douglas, who plays with drag and expresses their femininity, Willem's character. But in this show, especially with the character of Margot, I felt like Aubrey Peoples' character, seeing all of the different elements come together, how you would work with Heather, our costume designer, to make sure that the makeup interplayed with the really unique, cool costumes that she was coming up with. That was a delight for me, and a first time I've really gotten to interface with so many other people's creativity in that way. And I really loved that about this process.
I love that. I had such a good time working on this project, simply for the fact that each character had a story to tell and had a particular thread in this particular fabric, and everything was getting kind of interwoven. And I loved being able to create things in hair and makeup that were kind of weaving seamlessly with what all of the other departments were doing, and we were creating kind of this cohesive vision. That was that's why I got into the industry. That's what I wanted to do, and and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to do it on this last shoot.
Well, thank you for bringing your creativity and your vision to the characters. It was a delight for me. And it's an interesting and ironic thing that I think when we all start out in the arts, it's all about connecting with other people, right? As kids or, high schoolers, whenever you like first get into theater, for example, you're creating a community and you're getting to interface with so many other people's creativity. And then this weird thing happens when you enter the professional world, where unless you're very lucky, that sort of gets cut off from you for a long time, and then you're fighting to get it back.
Right.
We exist in a vacuum so often, and don't like, the amount of time as a writer that I get to spend on set is very, very small compared to when I was an actor in theater and spent all day, every day with the people that I was working with. So when we get those opportunities to like really connect artistically, that's why we're all doing this, and it's allowing us to get back to that childhood joy that brought us into this in the first place.
Right. The you mentioned when you were an actor, so because on Eastsiders and now Unconventional, you like to keep a leg in both sides, right? You kind of straddle the line as performer and also creator. Um, as a performer, what things do you feel? Um, well, and I'm asking this because I think that for a lot of people, um, and we've talked about this in other interviews for Face Value, is a lot of people, especially viewers, don't really realize that kind of the perfection that we see on screen happens because there is a team of artists who are collaborating
Right.
to make that happen, right? So that
And if your hair gets messed up, I call cut and I tell you, and then we get to fix it.
right. So there's that difference between what people will see with Noah Guillory versus what people may see when they encounter Kit Williamson in Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
How do you feel, and that, and there's still this kind of stigma too where people kind of are like, oh, he's a guy, he doesn't have hair and makeup and they don't do all that stuff. And but it's like, listen, I've worked on plenty of projects for the NFL where I was doing makeup on football players that you would never know are in a full face, but but it's part of the gig. um how do you feel that kind of beauty standards or standards of aesthetics kind of affect male performers in the industry?
Aubrey Peoples, who plays Margot, said something really, really profound to me when I was kind of in my head about a zit at one point that I had. Is, as you know, I get a weird zit somewhere on my face right at the start of every production.
Always.
Eastsiders season 1, it was like I killed somebody and got a little, crybaby tattoo. But I got one like right on the tip of my nose, like Rudolph. I've had one like right over here. I've gotten one wherever. I've had one like a bendy. I've always had the most unfortunately placed zit at some point in everything I have ever done. And sometimes you literally can't cover it up, right? That's something that but then you can take it out in post-production. So let's be clear. People do beauty makeup in post-production with color correction.
It happens.
I may have removed zit from my own face at one point. But what Aubrey said that, stuck with me was, remember, you're playing a human being with a human face and human body. And that's something that you can kind of lose in the shuffle a little bit. I know I've certainly been guilty of that, of just like focusing on like, no, I've got to look my absolute best, whatever that means, for this moment. And sometimes there's a character driven reason to do that. Like I kind of had in my head that I wanted Noah to look a certain way, that candidly I don't necessarily look. Because I had a backstory in mind for him, that he had, sort of dabbled in amateur pornography when he was in LA, and that he was a go-go dancer before becoming a bartender, and trying to juxtapose that with his life as a PhD student. That kind of mix of, I'm not saying there's a tension between, having abs and being a PhD student, but they are different priorities. And unless you're extraordinarily genetically blessed, it does take a lot of time, energy, effort, and money to have that sort of body. That's something that I think that is maybe not talked about as openly or as loudly as it should be. That what you see on Instagram is often the results of body dysmorphia and obsession. And I have both of those things in spades, as a lot of gay men do. So while trying to explore that with the character, I would be lying if I didn't also say, well, I'm going to be naked on camera and I want that memorialized in a certain way. And it's important to not get lost in that. And at times I certainly have, going from Eastsiders season 1 to Eastsiders season 4, a lot of people like to comment on the internet about the journey that I went on physically, because yes, I did really hit the gym a lot after season 1. It wasn't necessarily the result of like not liking what I saw on camera entirely. Some of it was also just wanting to grow up a little bit, because I was a real thin kid. I, talk about body dysmorphia. I was 140 pounds, 6'1", soaking wet in college. That's a different kind of body dysmorphia. Or rather, it's the same kind of body dysmorphia, just with a different result. So I knew in my 20s that I wanted to put on some more muscle, and it, between seasons, was a motivator for me. And I often use it as a motivator, which I guess is fucked up in a way, but it's also just the way human beings work, right?
Right. Has there been, or do you feel like there's been any kind of pressure from within the industry for you to look a particular way or to maintain?
For me personally, not really. Personally, I don't know if this is wrapped up in a broader conversation about typecasting of gay actors or whatever, but I never really saw myself as having the potential to be a romantic lead unless I was writing it myself. So if anything, I made a career as low status character that gets yelled at by series regular while wearing glasses. And you don't have to necessarily have a six-pack to do that. So that was the first phase of my career when I was primarily acting. I mostly kind of played nerds and weirdos. And I am a nerd and a weirdo, so that came very naturally to
me. You mentioned typecasting, and that's something else that we haven't really talked about in other interviews. We have talked about the idea that when you kind of come into the industry, and what a lot of people I don't think realize is that this is the only industry where you sign up to be judged on looks first and talent second.
Yeah.
And
your picture walks in the room before you.
Right.
Right.
Because I remember in years past when I was working with different managers, and they would say, we need new headshots, and people would come in with these kind of like glamorized, fully photoshopped, crazy photos, and they would be like, okay, so when you walk into a room, is this the person that everyone's going to see? Like, because that's what they're going to be expecting.
Do you always have a blowout, ma'am? Because if you can't do your hair that way, you're doing yourself a disservice, right?
Right. So but as far as typecasting goes, does that, when you were just an actor, when you weren't creating things for yourself, did you feel like or did you have conversations with representatives about changing appearance and in order to open up more doors? Or, how does that work how did that work for you?
Again, I never really had that experience, just because my body dysmorphia is self-imposed, not imposed upon me by the industry. I think when you get into sort of this more modern pressure of 2021 to constantly present an image online, that's where I could say I definitely feel that pressure. Now, is it still self-imposed? Yes, absolutely. There's a market for everybody on the internet, and there's something very empowering when you do figure that out. And when you realize that the only thing standing in your way is you, like there are models of every different size, age, and aesthetic and like whatever you want to say, like there's a market for everybody. I don't know how to put it that way, but the thing people seem most attracted to online is actually confidence and surety in yourself. And I don't know that I actually have that in spades. So I definitely kind of take a step back and get shy and curate my internet presence in a way that sometimes I wish I didn't. Um, but as far as acting goes, this is a funny anecdote from the acting class where I met so many of my closest friends in LA. Um, it was known as an industry acting class more than a acting class, you know, coming from theater, getting my start on Broadway, doing experimental theater off Broadway and off Broadway. I had a completely different approach to literally every part of the job than what LA sort of insists that you have. And that was my first exposure to conversations about type and how I was perceived, because the first exercise that you do in this acting class is that you went in, you said, "Hi, I'm Kit." Then you turned around, sat down, and wrote down what everybody said might be true about you. Like, oh, he's the class president. Oh, he's a computer hacker, or, you know, like basically just like what parts might you play, what could be true of this person based solely on their appearance. And that was an aha moment for me, where I was like, oh, I'm a character actor that is not going to get to play characters at this stage of my career. Wow. I'm going to get to play what people see on a first impression of me.
That sounds like the most daunting experiment ever. I don't know if I would have survived it.
Looking back on it, and I've had a lot of I'm still very close with a number of the people in that class. You know, that's where I met Bria Grant, Constance Wu, both from Eastsiders, right. Vera Meow, Sean Marr, who was on Eastsiders. And looking back, like a lot of the conversation was it was kind of fraught. I think about some of the fucked up things. Like, we all had conversations about it afterwards, where I'm not going to say who, none of the people just named, was bringing a lot of kind of racial shit into the conversation. I remember having conversations with everybody afterwards being like, it's fucked up, but it's definitely what's going to happen to you. Don't know that you need to expose yourself to it in an acting class situation. You know, like, did people perceive me as gay? Again, like this acting teacher also told my husband at one point to basically butch up how he talks, because he doesn't look gay. And I'm like, whoa, eat that right now. This was 10 years ago. Right. So obviously things have evolved so much, so much in those 10 years. There's a lot of work left to do, right. But I don't think that something like this would fly in the same way. You know, not this exercise, but the way that people interacted with it.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make absolute sense. That's yeah, and just
that little taste of what women put up with on a daily basis. That, you know, I feel always like it's valid and important to talk about body dysmorphia and all of these things, and to say, hey, men deal with this too, you know, but I don't want to erase the lifelong struggle with bullshit that women have had to put up with, literally coming at them from all fronts. You know, like,
oh no, I think that
to be a woman in this industry is a special kind of bullshit.
Yeah, no, I think that, you know, part of wanting to hear a male perspective or have a male perspective, but also that does not in any way change the fact that, you know, men kind of we have it easier in this, well, in a lot of industries, simply for the fact that, you know, we seem to be in some ways bulletproof when it comes to ageism and sexism. We, you know, yeah. we get a free pass.
I'm not worried about my casting potential going down as I get older. I'm actually looking forward to it creatively. Right. And I do think that, like everything, we're seeing progress in that regard. you know, one of my favorite shows out right now is The Good Fight, which centers pretty much exclusively older women. And my God, how thrilling to watch them all get to act together, because usually there just is the one, if even.
Right. The token.
And they're some of the most talented people on the planet.
Love it. If you were, and this is where I fall into kind of makeup artist. So if you had to list the three favorite products, the three things that are your kind of go-tos at the moment, what would they be?
Ooh, I'm a big serum queen. I really like a serum. So I would say hyaluronic acid. Mm-hmm. I like to put that acid on my face. I also like the Pixie Glow Tonic. And the Mario Badescu Rose Water Spray.
Right? have to have.
And then my other thing is like a hydrating, moisturizing and hydrating under eye thing in the morning, just to kind of like wake you up a little bit.
Right. So important. Wow. And especially when you're living in the desert, your moisture is so important.
Yes.
And sunscreen.
And sunscreen, yes, absolutely. Always put it in your moisturizer so you don't have to think about
it. Right. Right, especially when you're as porcelain as you are. Kit, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been lovely talking to you, and I can't wait to catch up with you and John. So hopefully sometime soon.
Yes, gotta have you back.
I'd love to come out and see El Dorado and see how things are progressing there. But again, thank you so much, and we will absolutely talk soon.
Hey, thank you, Robert. Love you.
Thanks, Kit. Bye. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Face Value. I'm your host, Robert Hensley, signing off. Until next time.